Transatlantic Committee, Kate Hansen-Bundt.
I hope you had a great lunch, but now it's time for the next session. Norway and Poland, close allies in Northern Europe. As Europe adapts to an increasingly contested security environment, cooperation between aligned and capable allies has become essential. Norway and Poland are such allies. We both view Russia as the main threat to European security, and as a result, we have bolstered cooperation over the common aim to secure a Ukrainian victory. I'm greatly looking forward to the discussion of these issues with both Norway and Poland's Minister of Foreign Affairs. So first, it is my great honor to welcome up to the stage my old and good friend, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Norway, Espen Barth Eide. Minister, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Kate, for that introduction. Dear Radek, welcome to Norway. It's lovely to have you here with us at the Security Conference, but also in Oslo. And dear everybody, great to be here. I want to say right away, as we speak about Poland and Norway and Northern Europe, that Radek is an old friend, not because he's old, but because the friendship is old. And we have both served as defense ministers and foreign ministers, and we belong to that little club who think that it's good to have done defense before you do foreign affairs, because you see the world from slightly different perspectives. And that was in the old times. And then when Radek and I came back, and then Radek came back, we felt that the world was in some kind of order. Of course, it is not, but at least we are there, and we have a strong partnership together. And over these years, I have seen how Poland, has grown into be a key player in Europe, a key player in NATO, a very serious country in all possible respects, a star performer when it comes to defense expenditure. We are both in the high performer club, but frankly, Poland is ahead of us, a good source of inspiration, around 5% already, but also a country with whom it feels very natural to discuss deep strategic issues and their practical defense and foreign affairs implications. And we have, in this very murky and difficult world that was so well described by the previous panels, you really get to know who your near friends, close friends are, your real friends are, the closest friends are. And what has happened and this is a long-term development, but after there's at least one thing that President Putin has achieved that I appreciate, which is that he helped Finland and Sweden to finally decide that they should join NATO. And the fact that Finland and Sweden joined NATO matters for Polish-Norwegian relations for clear geographical reasons, because what has happened now is that we have a continuous landmass of NATO countries from the Barents Sea, or our part of the Arctic Sea, down to the Baltic Sea, and everything between until you get over to Russia is NATO territory. So that means a lot for military planning. It means a lot for security sharing, intel sharing and other kinds of sharing, but also for a strong sense of togetherness among what we often refer to as the NB8, the Nordic Baltic 8 countries, which are all small or medium-sized countries, but also with our close neighbors just to the south of that, which, of course, in which Poland is a key example. So, for instance, in the organization called CBSS, the Council on Baltic Sea States, that was an organization that was set up for a totally different purpose. It was like some of the other organizations that came out of the happy years of the early 90s, where we wanted to help prospecting members to become closer in practical cooperation on soft issues, and also involve Russia. Now, Russia has left and everybody else joined NATO, so this is now a club of 10 NATO countries. It's not a subgroup, it doesn't make any formal decisions, but it's one of the frameworks where the NB8 are connected to our friends both in Poland and in Germany. And of course, we have a similar, somewhat similar setup in what is called GEF, that is the NB8 plus the United Kingdom and the Netherlands. So here in Northern Europe, in the extended Nordics and the extended Northern Europe, we see a very serious group of countries that work ever more closely together on security issues. And I think I can say that all these countries share a strong understanding of the importance of transatlantic ties. We need to continue to invest in the transatlantic partnership. We need to have the US and Canada with us in our security outlook, and that NATO is the relevant defense organization, that collective defense should happen through NATO. And there is a big room for rebalancing between Europe and North America, or Europe and plus Canada and the US rather, within NATO, because NATO would, even with a different balance, NATO would still have the protocol, the technical integration, the common standards, the command structures, and so on, that you would need even if you have a more Europeanized NATO. But we all also agree that there is a big room for something beyond that, because security today is much more than defense. Security is economic security, is making practical preparation for civil preparedness and the delivery of civil preparedness. And Norway chose a year and a half ago to enter into a strategic partnership with the European Union on defense and security. Then we made it very clear, again, in the preamble, that the collective defense rests with NATO, but a lot of other things can happen in a close partnership with the EU, and Poland is one of the countries that has been very supportive in that integration into those parts of EU cooperation that we and Iceland, and now also the UK, is trying to link up to without being member in the EU. After all, Norway is the world's leading experts on being in the EU without being in the EU. So we can share that experience with anybody who's interested. To the immediate east of this landmass, of course, is Russia. And as Kate very correctly said, we all agree that the number one security issue is Russia, and that is to such a degree the number one security issue that we have to keep it as number one. And that's actually a rather important thing to say. Whatever else we do has to be structured around the understanding that we have a very difficult neighbor in Russia, and it's not going to get any easier even if we bring the war in Ukraine to an end, maybe to the contrary. So we need to have that long-term planning. And Russia, in their own military organization, they have re-established something that is called, interestingly, the Leningrad military district, not, for instance, the St. Petersburg, but the Leningrad military district, and that's our neighbor to the east of all of us. And that also matters, because that means that from the Russian military outlook, we are in the same club, and we actually agree, we are in the same club. So they're right, and that's also why we have to make that a strong club inside of NATO and the EU. I should also say that since Poland is where we go in and out of Ukraine, either when we travel as leaders and so on, but also where most of the equipment is transported. That's why Eastern Poland becomes very important also in the context of this war. We're very happy that we've been able to take part of the collective protection of that part of Poland with our F-35s and our NASAMS, and that we also collaborate closely on Camp Jonsborg, which is where we teach and train new brigades for Ukraine to use in the war. So in all of this, we have a shared interest in developing our bilateral cooperation or regional cooperation to strengthen all these ties. And I will discuss this at more length with the Foreign Minister Sikorski later, but also how we plan for the long-term management of our relations to Russia and how we keep the alliance together. Norway came out last year with its first ever national security strategy. Some other countries have done that many times, and some are more interesting than others maybe. But we also made the first one in order to demonstrate that we look at security as a broad concept, but we also have to have some clear principles, and to link the defense security in a more classical sense with economic security, with resilience, with shared understanding of long-term developments is very essential. And here, this new North European partnership is very healthy. And it's very good to be able to say that in a world where most of what I talk about are increasing problems, that here we have an increasing friendship, partnership, shared interest, and it's based on a real, genuine understanding of a long-term common destiny. And that's what I wanted to say. And the main show today, of course, is Minister Sikorski.
Dear Espen, thank you for the generous introduction. Madam Secretary General, Ministers, Ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it's true that we belong to a very exclusive club of foreign ministers who've been defense ministers. But in the last few days, I've discovered that there is an even more exclusive club. Our new Irish colleague is simultaneously foreign minister and defense minister. I'd just like it to be remembered that when I was defense minister, I bought the first Polish naval strike squadron, which includes Kongsberg missiles, and we bought a subsequent one, and it's not our last word. I am particularly pleased to be standing here before you in this magnificent hall. Because our ambassador tells us that this was the place where traditionally the Nobel Peace Prize was handed over, and one of the last recipients who received it here was Danuta Wałęsa, the wife of Lech Wałęsa, who couldn't come here in person because he couldn't be sure that the communist authorities would have let him back in. So for us, in that depth of the communist oppression, in the middle of Poland's lost decade in the 1980s, it was a very moving moment. It was a lifting up of spirits and a gesture to give us hope. We were, at that time in the 1980s, the poorest in our 1,000-year history by comparison with Western Europe. We've done very well since then, which proves that democracy and free markets work. Of course, the Nobel Peace Prize is of some interest right now. Prime ministers get letters. Our Speaker of Parliament has stated this morning that unfortunately he will not be signing the ready-made nomination paper for the next Nobel Peace Prize. Apparently, as foreign ministers, we also have the right to nominate. I'm on the record saying that if President Trump secures a fair peace for Ukraine, I shall do it myself. But it's I who will decide what a fair peace is. The relationship between Poland and Norway is in the best shape ever. I can't imagine how it could be even better. Last year, Norwegian air defense systems and F-35s were the first to help protect the Polish sky. Defense cooperation has been growing steadily and effectively. Together, as Espen has already mentioned, we are helping Ukrainian soldiers who can now train in Poland in Camp Jomsborg. This year, Norway will be the strategic partner for the Oslo Security Forum, whose boss is here. That's right. I hope you come in droves to Warsaw. It's an excellent institution. And we hold similar views and concerns. I come here with a simple message. Poland also looks north. we are willing to develop our bilateral cooperation with Norway even further. I believe our countries have a unique role to play on our continent. Our geographic locations give our countries a strategic role in their respective regions with regard to Russia. And it even goes deeper than that. You know, Poland is between East and West. In the old days at NATO, they used to joke that God created Poland for tank warfare. We are trying to get away from that image. And we now like to think of ourselves as southern Scandinavia. You may or may not know that our Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, actually belongs to the Kaszebe national minority in Poland, and they were originally a Baltic tribe. So here you are. Norway is the oldest NATO member in the region, and Poland is the biggest on the eastern flank. We are both investing in our defense capabilities, and I would venture to say that our relevance is increasingly recognized by our American allies. Russian aggression against Ukraine and Russia's hybrid war against Europe continue unabated. Putin still believes he can win. Any misunderstanding within the transatlantic family, any distraction from our real security priorities, encourages him to explore our weaknesses and fosters Kremlin's criminal endeavors. Ukrainian territorial integrity and our own security is a long-term commitment. We support efforts to find a peaceful solution to the war, but we all understand that to have peace with Putin, we need to be united and ready to defend one another. Our strategic goals are straightforward: to keep our transatlantic community strong and united, to increase European NATO capabilities in response to the Russian aggression in the face of an inevitable shift in burden sharing, to address key gaps in regional security and around the Norwegian and Baltic seas. I am impressed with Norway's growing awareness of our shared responsibility for the Baltic Sea, as Espen was just saying. I appreciate your dedication, your willingness to participate in these efforts. Poland is at the moment in the chair of the Council of Baltic Sea States, and we aim to make the organization politically stronger by adopting a more focused strategy for regional security. And I know I can count on Norway's cooperation in this effort. With the impressive world's fifth largest trading fleet and the enormous experience in private-public partnership, Norway we see as a maritime superpower. I do encourage you to take a leading role in two areas. One, halting the growth of the infamous shadow fleet, which I prefer to call clunker fleet. Because shadows are harmless. But a fleet of very old tankers that don't fulfill technical criteria, that don't hold actionable insurance, and that ply enormous amounts of oil in a shallow, enclosed sea like the Baltic, is a present danger to the ecosystems and to our finances, quite frankly. Just to convince you how serious this is, I once, a couple of years ago, I asked the chairman of BP how much it cost them to clean up the mess created by Deepwater Horizon. Do you remember? In the Gulf of America, once called the Gulf of Mexico. The total cost, the rescue operation, the cleanup, and the payoffs, and the legal costs, $65 billion, half the value of the company. And secondly, we need jointly to provide assistance in the protection of maritime critical infrastructure. As you know, pipelines and underwater cables are being breached, sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident, but we don't have the right legal framework for dealing with people who do this. The only way to defeat and keep away Russia is to continue degrading their energy sector and to limit the flow of resources to their defense companies. We believe in alliance's principle of 360 degrees. We follow the developments in the Arctic region and share your perspective, enshrined in the already mentioned Norwegian National Security Strategy and your new Arctic strategy. The Arctic is becoming a region of growing tensions. Please be sure that you will not be alone in facing this new challenge. Poland is no newcomer to the Arctic. Next year, we will mark the 70th anniversary of the permanent Polish polar station, Hornsund, in Svalbard. And we've just agreed with Espen that we would go and visit it together next year. Ladies and gentlemen, let me raise two more issues connected to security. First, economic cooperation. As the world's 20th largest economy, which Poland is now, we are ready to step up our cooperation in new fields, in IT, in quantum technologies, energy, space programs, and broader research. I'm also very proud to have learned from our ambassador this morning that the Polish petrochemical company, Orlen, is the 10th largest taxpayer in Norway. In the world of hybrid risks and trade wars, cooperation, innovation, and competitiveness are not a choice. They are a must. Secondly, Norway and the European Union. Norway is no longer a self-sufficient country on the periphery of Europe. Norway is not just yet another European country. You are a pillar of Europe's security. And in a world where long-established principles are undermined, we need more European unity. Rest assured that if you ever apply to join the European Union, I am confident in saying that whoever is in charge in Poland will vote in favor. Ladies and gentlemen, the last few years have made it very clear where our friends are, certainly in Northern Europe. The relationship between our countries is built on reliability and a shared understanding of our commitments. This allows us to plan for the long term and to act with confidence, even in an uncertain international environment. Poland has been and will remain your trustworthy and accountable ally, and we know this commitment is fully reciprocated. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to both of you for your statements. I now look forward to discuss the Norwegian-Polish or the Polish-Norwegian relationship. But I would like to start with Mr. Sikorski. I think it was in December I read an op-ed written by you. Where you started, it was called Never Again. And you started by telling us what keeps you awake at night. Would you care to share your nightmare with us here today?
Well, remind me which particular one I was... there are so many and the number seems to be growing.
I think it was the rule-based international order, and we can't start this conversation without, commenting a little bit on what's going on in the beginning of this year. It's been some some strange comments from the other side of the Atlantic. You wrote about that this international order that, you know, was shaped by the memories of 2 world wars and Holocaust.
Well, you know, in Poland we are mostly Catholic, so we know that human nature is fallible, but and that we are sinners. But it's still nice to have the 10 Commandments as an aspiration.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this is how we think of the rules-based international order.
That's good.
There have been many breaches over decades, but it was still a reference point.
Yeah, yeah.
And now some people say that we don't even need it as a reference point, and that's a problem. We all know that the UN Security Council, for example, doesn't reflect the distribution of power in the world.
No.
Not a single African country, not a single Latin American country is a permanent member. India, 1.5 billion people, not on it. And, you know, with the invasion of Ukraine, a permanent member of a body that was charged originally with maintaining the peace uses its membership as an immunity from prosecution for an act of blatant aggression.
Yeah.
So sure, the UN you know, is in danger of going down the route of the League of Nations. But that is not, that should not be a pretext for dismantling it altogether. Also because so many UN agencies do sterling work, UNHCR, World Food Programme, and many others. And also if you are proposing an alternative, the alternative should be better than the original. And that's not what we have at the moment.
No, that's true. Espen, would you care to comment a little bit? Are we into
as a predominantly Protestant country, but we traditionally take the scripture literally. But the other part of Protestantism is that you're actually supposed to interpret yourself. So there's some space for you know, discussing what it actually says. But I agree with you. I think, you know, we all knew that this was never perfect. This was also very central to Carney's very important speech in Davos, that it was a good order for many of us, but it was never perfect. I mean, that's good to say. But I mean, there are institutions that came out of that Pax Americana or global liberal order, which are worth preserving and adapting and modernizing. You know, the World Trade Organization, you know, either you have it or you don't, but if you don't have it, that's very costly for the world. You need to deal with that, but you also need to engage with are there some rules that has to be changed? We need to keep the UN, but also develop the UN. And the three core principles is basically, thou shall not invade other countries. That's a good rule, in my view. Thou shall try to cooperate economically when you can. And there shall be human rights in all countries. That's never been perfect, but the principles are not bad. These are good principles.
Don't change borders by force.
Yeah. I mean, the principle is good, yeah. Because the connection actually between that principle and the principle of human rights is that there shall be respect for human rights within the borders, and then the borders doesn't matter so much. Far from reality, of course, but these are good principles. But we need, in the world we live in now, to really engage with how we can not only preserve, but also invent and modernize and further develop after 81 years after the Second World War.
Yeah. Sikorski mentioned that Poland is looking north. And as Europe adapts to more fragmented and contested security environment, how central is regional cooperation in different shapes, but most definitely in Northern Europe, to Poland's overall security thinking, Sikorski?
Well, we traditionally have won and lost most, if not all, our wars on land, whereas your fortes are at sea and in the air.
Exactly.
Which means that we are complementary. And this northern dimension of our policy is that we are natural allies. So for us, the sense of threat from a Russia that has adopted an imperialist state ideology, for us, it's not an option, it's existential. This is what binds us together. And when I talk about southern Scandinavia, I don't mean just the security dimension. I mean that this is our ambition, that's the kind of society we want to be. You know, there are threats to democracy, polarization and so on. And it seems that smaller countries are better positioned to withstand them because it's easier to maintain trust.
Yeah.